Part 3. Questions 21 to 35. In this part, you will hear 3 talks or lectures. There are 5 questions for each talk or lecture. For each question, choose the correct answer A, B, C or D. You will hear the talks or lectures only once. Questions 21 to 25.
You will hear a man called Paul Hart talking about his trip to Africa with a team of scientists.
Now, listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
With us today to tell us about his trip across Africa is the biologist Paul Hart.
We started on the east coast and travelled on foot across Africa to Gabon and West, collecting plants and flowers along the way. It wasn't easy, but my route crossed a region rich in plants, and I chose it because it won't stay that way for long when more roads are built. It was my only chance to get important information about the natural life of the area. I had a team of 11 scientists. We walked from 6 in the morning, but the forest was so thick it took hours to cut our way through it, and some days we only walked 1 kilometre before dark. Fortunately, we carried special equipment that was very light, and we took as little food as possible, but we were always tired when we put the tents up at night. Sometimes we saw elephants or lions. They were amazing to watch, and never attacked us. Every day I collected plants and added to my notes. There was so much new information to write down. There were, of course, some low points, especially when I got anxious about the team. It was my job to make sure everyone got home safely. Towards the end of the trip, I suddenly discovered one day that the food had nearly all gone. It was strange because we'd brought enough dried food with us to last the trip, food that wouldn't ever go bad, and we'd stopped at villages for fresh food too. But then I found that some of the team had eaten much more than they were supposed to. I was angry with them because it was a silly thing to do. Then we started walking again. There were no maps for the area, but we had a local guide. Then one of the team got sick, and we couldn't go any further. We let him rest, but he got much worse. Thankfully, his life was saved by a fisherman who came along the river in a boat and took him to a doctor in the nearest village. Finally, I returned home, and I'm back with my family and friends. I really missed them while I was away, but I learnt so much on the trip, and I'm really glad I went. I was asked to go on another trip, this time to Australia, but I said that I couldn't because I'm busy here in London, and I think I've done enough travelling.
Questions 26 to 30. Listen to a talk about ecotourism, a danger to wildlife.
Now, listen carefully and answer questions 26 to 30.
Ecotourism is a booming business that many tour operators cite as being helpful to nature. Every year, millions of people descend on protected and pristine natural areas to observe rare species. However, a new report casts doubt on the value of this form of tourism. In fact, it suggests that ecotourism is more damaging than helpful to nature. Details are in a report published in the journal Trends in Ecology and Evolution. Researchers believe tourists are disrupting animals in their natural habitat. They pointed to a recent event where sea turtles in Costa Rica had problems laying their eggs because of the hordes of tourists who had congregated to watch the turtles' nesting habits. The report says that ecotourism is making animals bolder and that this could endanger the animals. A regular human presence might make animals tamer and less cautious about other animals around them, and this could put them at risk of being attacked by their natural threats. Then they will suffer higher mortality when they encounter real predators, the report says. It added, "When animals interact in benign ways with humans, they may let down their guard." The report said it was essential to develop a more comprehensive understanding of how different species in different situations respond to human visitation, and under what precise conditions human exposure might put them at risk.
Questions 31 to 35. Listen to a talk about a project about wildlife in city gardens.
Now, listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 35.
The tomato is a popular vegetable, which figures in the cuisine of many countries around the world. It is particularly prominent in Italian cooking, but it was unknown in Europe until Spanish explorers brought it back from the Americas. The tomato originated in the highlands of Peru. From there, it eventually found its way to Mexico, where it was cultivated by the Aztecs. The Aztec tomato wasn't the large red vegetable we know today. Rather, it was small and yellow. When this small round fruit arrived in Italy, it was named golden apple for its bright yellow color. You'll notice I just called it a fruit. That's because a tomato is botanically a fruit, even though most everyone calls it a vegetable. The actual word tomato comes from the Aztec name for the vegetable, meaning plump thing. The tomato arrived in Europe in the 1500s and quickly became a popular food in Spain and Italy. In the late 1600s, the Italians began publishing recipes that used tomatoes. The British, however, had a different attitude toward the vegetable. It was grown as an ornamental plant in Britain in the 1600s, but it wasn't eaten, because it was thought to be poisonous. It wasn't until the 1700s that tomatoes became part of the daily diet in Britain.